We don't hit home runs on this pod. We work station to station. We are back. Recording date is February 22nd. Back to do an off season, I guess, wrap up, report card, and we're going to kick off spring training. I'm back with my battery mate as always, Dustin. Dustin, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
Doing all right. Good to hear uh, the sounds of spring, as it were. The cracks of the bats and the pops of the gloves on my radio and TV. So it's hopeful for the spring, and I'm feeling good.
I'm also back with the righty from the pen, Rob. Rob, how you doing? How you feeling about the Jays? And with pitchers and catchers reporting in the last week, spring is on the way.
Well, it's a good time of year. I mean, spring training is a couple of days away. Jay's first spring training game on Saturday. So great time of year. Looking forward to the spring, to the summer, and new season. Hopefully, the Jays can bounce back from last year, even though they made the postseason. But hopefully, they can move a little bit, do a little better this year in the postseason with some changes, which we are going to be talking about.
All right, let's get into those. So we're going to talk about just kind of wrap up the off season. It was a bit of a weird one. I'm just going to start quick summary. Basically, we have some signings. We have IKF. We have Kevin Kiermaier re-signing. We have Justin Turner and Yariel Rodriguez was signed as well. We had some minor league deals for Eduardo Escobar and Daniel Vogelbach. So I'm going to ask Dustin first. Uh, Dustin, can you give me your feelings overall on this off season? And when you are finished that, can you give me a grade on how you think this Jays front office did?
Honestly, I've been a little bit, I guess, down on the off season. A little, maybe uh, the Shohei Ohtani effect has happened, where there was a big kind of expectation and hopefulness at the start, and then when that didn't happen, which should have been expected, but when that didn't happen, anything else after that is going to be a little bit meh. I mean, overall, I think they didn't necessarily improve, but they didn't get worse. I don't think. I think they kind of overall treaded water, and if we think that last year they under improved their expectations, and I think they did based on what everybody's expectations were at the start of last year, then I think if they meet those expectations or exceed them a little bit this year, then I think we're in for a good team. So it's a good team, not a great team, but overall on the sort of expectations of getting better in the off season, which I think that should be the goal. I don't think they succeeded. Grade, I would give it maybe a C plus, B minus kind of range. Let's go with C plus. Not great, but it's a pass.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off right with the grade as well. I mean, I was probably going to go with a C or C minus, kind of underwhelming. I know after the hype with Otani and we didn't get him, which we all should have known better, but um, that got things very excited for everybody. Then we thought, well, hey, now that they didn't get him and they have all this money, maybe they can burn it with making some good free agent signings, even though the class of free agency wasn't that great. I mean, didn't really do anything major. I hear a lot about the Scott Boras five, and that's very frustrating to hear as a fan because it's like they're not nobody's making any moves with those guys. Um, I do like the signing of Justin Turner, uh, partially because I think it's making Bo happy because he mentioned in a podcast or interview that he would have liked to have seen him in a Jays uniform along with JD Martinez. So at least they got him, and maybe that helps Bo, veteran bat. He's probably going to be hitting cleanup, uh, so maybe that adds a little bit of protection for Vladdy. So I don't mind seeing that that signing, uh, Isaiah kind of Falefer, did I say that right? Got tongue tied. Um, Again, a Yankee. I guess it's kind of nice to see a Yankee come over to the Jays side. Don't know what he's going to do. I guess probably going to offer me more defense than offense. Re-signing Kiermaier seemed to be a fan favorite. He seems to want to be here, so that's kind of good. But again, like Dustin said, it's a pass, but nothing great. So I would give the overall uh, grade a C.
I think you guys are giving them a bit better grade than they deserve. I must be honest.
The one thing I'll say, like they did something. I mean, it wasn't great, but they did something. So they didn't just stand pat. Because I don't think the Red Sox did much, and I think there's some other
Well,
teams that.
hold on. Like, I don't know if that's kind of like comparing against the team that did like the least. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if that's. I guess it's it's good. It's an AL East team, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna buy like their third baseman, their star third baseman is already upset that they've basically done nothing.
But my point is like some teams have done nothing. So if you've done nothing, then that's a fail. If you've done one minor move, then maybe that's just a pass with a D. At least the Jays, there's three names that are known that are out there. They're not the greatest names, but the whole class hasn't been great of free agents, right? Even if we would have signed Cody Bellinger, people are still going to be like, well, it's not Shohei Ohtani. So you're not going to trade anybody. So I think given what we had, it's a grade, it's a pass. I don't know if I would give them any worse.
I think I would pass this team if the bat wasn't solely Justin Turner. I think if it was Justin Turner and somebody else, and that somebody else could have been a signing, it could have been acquired via trade. You know what? Maybe it could have even been re-signing Matt Chapman, right? Like, because right now, and I'm not sure I'm going to classify Matt Chapman as a quote unquote bat, but right now our third base looks like IKF and Justin Turner, right? So I'm I'm gonna give this offseason a D, and I would like to contrast this offseason to last offseason where Dustin and I were talking early on, and basically it seemed like, of course, on the face of it, it seemed like they had addressed all of their needs, right? We need to get some left-handed bats. We want to improve defense. That was the mantra, right? And get some starting pitching. Whereas this offseason basically was we don't need any starting pitching. Yeah, you can add for depth purposes and whatnot, but what we need bats, right? And you know what? You could actually see as the offseason went on, yes, we want, preferably left-handed bats because of how righty strong this team is. But as the offseason went on, it was like, well, we just want bats, like if any bats, right? And so I actually really like Justin Turner. I like his attitude. I listened to a bunch of his interviews. I love his attitude. Love everything about kind of what he's going to bring. It's just that I'd like it. I would have really liked him and another bat to be joining, and there has not been. We kind of figured, oh well, all these guys are signed up with Scott Boras, and if we don't kind of work out something and essentially overpay, we're likely not get him. So maybe there's going to be a trade in January. Everybody's like, wow, they're gonna do something, right? And that something was Justin Turner. Okay, fine. It's very possible that Justin Turner drops off a cliff. I don't think that's gonna happen, but the guy is almost as old as I am, right? And I there's going to be diminishing returns at some point. There's been no trades. Signing four players, two of which are essentially defensive, players. Like Kiemer is not really. I wouldn't really call him a bat. He was really re-signed for his uh, defensive acumen out in center field. And I'm not even really sure why they signed Kiermaier when they did. Like it just seemed like he basically signed and then told the world that, well, I didn't have the suitors that I thought I would when I elected to be a free agent. I don't know. Now saying that, I'm gonna, the caveat is that I don't think this is an easy offseason, and I think it was made 10 times worse by the whole Otani kind of pursuit, and then that crazy Friday, and of course it wasn't successful. So I'm gonna give the Jays front office a D.
Well, I think what you've displayed here, Al, is the exact thing that Bo Bichette was talking about in the quote that he said the other day. In that, you know, previous off seasons they've had to prove people right, and this year it seems like they have to prove people wrong. And you're displaying exactly that kind of attitude, which is this team, which is essentially, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the same team as it was last year. I mean, you subtract, Matt Chapman and Brandon Belt, you add IKF and Justin Turner. Maybe that's a little bit of a downgrade, but overall the rest of the team is the same. And what, like, this team is going to do worse than last year, or is it going to do better than last year? If we agree that last year was a disappointment, underachievement, then do we expect another underachievement? Like, have we set the bar lower now? I don't get that. I mean, I agree that they didn't make the team better. Yeah, and that's why I would give it a C. Like, it's not getting an A and not getting a B. They didn't get better, but they didn't get worse. They didn't fail.
I agree with that.
If they missed on Otani and then went out and spent $200 million or whatever on Bellinger, that's risky. I don't know if I'd give that an A. I don't know if I'd give that even a B. Cody Bellinger could flop, and then at the end of this year, we'd be saying, what the heck? Why did we do that? Why did we waste that money? Now we got 3 more, 5 more years, 10 more years of Cody Bellinger. Like, get out of here.
I don't think a Bellinger signing makes it any better than a B anyway.
For me to give out an A grade, this offseason would have had to been robust. Like we're talking 4 or 5 legit players.
Well, if they get Otani, it's A, right?
Well, yeah. What the hell do I care about the rest of the offseason if they got Otani?
Right.
Would have just signed off at that point. I don't think they got worse from I think you're right. Right. And I just think I'm just evaluating the moves that are made. There's players on this team that could hit 40 home runs next year or this coming season, right? Players that that are going to get possibly 30 home runs, 100 RBs, 100 RBIs. So it's very possible that this team is around the same as last year, maybe better. There seems to be a lot of variables, and a lot of the variables are because we're relying on internal improvement or positive regression or whatever we're calling it. My worry is that the Yankees have got substantially better. If they sign Blake Snell, we're fucked. I think that's a real worry. The Baltimore Orioles, I wasn't totally confident that they were going to put up the same kind of season. But then, they go out and address their starting pitching, which is, possibly a weakness on the team with a former Cy Young winner. No big deal, right? And as I said, I think it was a tough spot to be in. Maybe in 12 months' time, one of Bo or Vladdy have re-signed. You're using money that they didn't, put towards players this offseason. And maybe, the world looks like a better place. And, we'll all have, you know, looking through the rose tinted glasses. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
I agree that there's not a lot of hope necessarily from what we saw happen this offseason. There's not a lot to, like, hang your hat on and say, that was a great kind of offseason, and you know we solved all the problems and we're going to fix it. I think what the team is telling us from what we've seen this offseason, one, they went after Shohei Ohtani. They were willing to spend the money for a unicorn player. I mean, it tells us that there's money there for when, if, let's say, Vladdy has a comeback year this year, hits 45 home runs, is an MVP candidate again, they want to re-sign him. They have the money there for that. It tells Vladdy that if he does that, then the money is there for him. Same thing for Bo, for both of them. Hell, if both of them kind of show what they can be, and I think we've all said forever that they can be those perennial MVP sort of people, then that money is there for them if they can take this team on their backs and bring them into at least a deep playoff run, 95 win season or something like that, on the backs of these two guys, then the money's there for them. That's one thing that at least, making the offer and making the run at Shoei has shown for them. And then two, it's shown that they believe in what they've built already, and that a lot of the narratives that they've been talking about this spring is about, improving on the communication and the coaching and the little things sort of internally, and hoping for an internal improvement. Maybe that's something that can be done. I mean, we don't know all those ins and outs, but I think that that's definitely possible. I mean, again, I reiterate, last year at this time, we were talking about this team winning 95 games, being a, a World Series favorite, and it's not much different. Like, and even then, last year at this time, we didn't know what we would get for Barrios and Kikuchi, and then they turned out to be like solid starters. Now maybe they turn into a pumpkin again this year, and the trouble is the starting pitching. But they've added some depth there, so I think they've shored up that at least. I don't know. I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm buying the Kool-Aid. Maybe you know, I'm just kind of falling into that trap of the hopeful fan. But man, I don't think this team is much worse than it was this time last year. I think we just have that kind of recency bias of seeing them fail. And there may be a lot of reasons that, other than just the makeup of the team, for that failure.
All right, we wanted to talk about some spring storylines, and we have three here. And the first one we're going to talk about is the packed Jays infield. And is there a trade coming before opening day?
There's a lot of indications that that is a high possibility, and I'm sure that they're looking at that. I mean, we've got, as you say, a packed roster at that sort of middle infield slash bench bat position. We've got Kevin Biggio, David Schneider, Santiago Espinal, Eduardo Escobar, Isaiah Falefa. If you want to count Justin Turner in there at third base, although he's probably more likely a DH. So that's a pretty, there's 5 or 6 guys that, are vying for 2 spots on any given day. It makes a lot of sense that we'd be looking to try and trade that for somebody that can help, maybe in the bullpen, or even like a bat that we've been looking at. Somebody that's a more regular third baseman, for example.
Yeah, stacked infield. I mean, I think keep Biggio at second with Schneider. You have Santiago Espinal. I don't mind him at third. Turner as your DH and possibly third. Espinal can also play short. I mean, you put him there, give Bo a day off here and there. And then third, Kai Falefa. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying his name.
Just say IKF. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go IKF. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty stacked. Yeah, like who would you potentially trade? I guess you could go Espinal or Biggio, but what are you really gonna get for them? That's gonna improve the team. I don't.
Yeah, I think the biggest trade chip there is Espinal, and what you can get is maybe a relief pitcher.
Maybe a fourth, like outfielder, but I guess IKF can play outfield as well if you need it, right? So I mean they're stacked, but I think there's still some uncertainty with Biggio, although he did well last year. And what I noticed last year with Espinal and Biggio is that when you just threw them in there, they did terrible, which makes sense, right? Like the more you play, the better you are. And I noticed it with those two. So if you're not going to play them, then yeah, trade them or play them. But I don't want to. The one thing I don't want to see is Biggio on third. I think he's fine on second.
That's the hill you're going to die on. No Biggio on third.
I don't think they need him at third now. I mean, they got enough third basemen defensively.
I don't think so either. And I would say that I think the man, like if there is an odd man out, I think it's gotta be has to be Espinal. Like I just if you're talking about other players, obviously, second base, you got the lefty righty combo. And you know what? It's if things work out to plan, and we're gonna talk about this in a moment, but if things work out to plan, like that's probably like second base is probably like a platoon, really, if anything.
Let me just put this out there again. Like you have Bo there. He will play every game, but if he gets injured or he has to be taken off his feet for a game or he has to be DH, who's your backup shortstop?
I would say Ernie Clement.
Yeah, or David Schneider. I mean, that's who covered last year. No,
I don't think he played a single game at short. I think he played at third.
he played second while Espinal played short. Who played short then?
Well, that's what I mean. Like a short, maybe Clement did it. Maybe Clement did it for a little bit. Um, and then Espinal. And I mean, Espinal on short, I think was okay. Espinal on third, I think is okay. So, I mean, yeah, he's probably the one that you would trade because you would probably get more for him than you would with anybody else. But I still like him on the team as a backup for Bo on short. But how often is that going to happen?
Well, another player on, I guess, this infield merry-go-round, and another storyline that I think is probably going to be an interesting one to follow is what version of Davis Schneider are we going to get? So, of course, August 2023 was quite fruitful for Mr. Davis Schneider, had an incredible month, and not so good of a September, and really didn't even feature, I think, in the playoffs at all. He, I think, at one point, and I think I went to one of the games somewhere in the middle of this, but I think he was like 0 for 31 or 32 at one point. So maybe give me some thoughts on what kind of like what are we gonna get from David Schneider? Is he September David Schneider and he gets sent back to Buffalo, or are we gonna get something maybe more August like?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not too sure. It's hard to predict him. I mean, he had such a great breakout, and but as you suggest, he's had some low moments. Um, it may be, as Rob was saying, like just a playing time factor. He just seems to, the more he plays, the more chances he gets, the more he sees the ball, the better he is. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think this kind of plays into the last topic, which was, that we have so much options on the infield that we can kind of afford to give him the chance and see how he does. I think he's earned a right to at least start at second, assuming his spring training goes okay and he's injury free. I think he'll get that chance to start the season at second, and we'll see. But he's not going to have a long leash. If I had to, put my money down, I wouldn't be betting a whole lot on him. I'd be kind of holding on him, let's say.
The debut Schneider that hit, what did he hit, two home runs on his first, or his home run, two home runs or something in his first debut. I don't think we see that version of Travis. I think we see more of what we saw towards the end of the year. I think he platoons with Biggio, and I think he's good at that. Like that's a fine combo, lefty righty. But I don't think we see the debut version of him where he was going like 3 for 4.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw it an over under before we move on to the next storyline. Davis Schneider over under 15 home runs.
I would take under on that. I don't think he's going to get enough. Like, I don't think he's going to play every game.
I'll go devil's advocate and I'll say over. Between 15 and 17. I don't he won't hit 20, but I think he'll go between 15 and 17.
Davis Schneider has a lot of power for seemingly what he brings to the plate. It's gonna really depend on his off season. And was it Matt Haig that they've promoted to the big league hitting assistant hitting coach? If he has figured out how to hit a baseball that is out over the plate, that is up. Maybe not. Maybe he's not crushing these pitches. Maybe he's not crushing these pitches, but he's just doing something with them. I think he has a possibility of maybe hitting close to 15 home runs because I think he has a lot of power. When he puts a good swing on a ball, it goes far. But the problem in September was that they figured out that basically don't throw him low and on the inner half of the plate. They figured that out, and this is, of course, what major leaguers are gonna do, right? This is what they're gonna do. They're gonna figure that out with, and he even kind of he it was like he even kind of said that his weaknesses, and I think we were kind of wondering at the time if he was kind of playing a little possum, but I don't think he was playing possum because he didn't seem to be able to hit a high fastball. Saying that, I don't think anyone on the Jays could hit a high fastball the entire 2023 season. So, I don't think I should hang that one on him. So I think there's a possibility, but if he runs into a hard time early in the season, like there's probably a good chance he's getting sent down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I'm going under. I mean, he's got looking at what he did last year, 35 games, he had 8 home runs. Now, that's quite a bit for 35 games. You extrapolate that to 160, and I don't know, I can't do the math that quickly, but it's definitely more than 15. But is he going to play that much, right? Is he going to play, in order to get 15, 16, he'd have to play, and he's at that same pace, he'd have to play 70 games. I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity, especially like you suggest if he struggles early. There's so much other options there. Um, Espinal has been fairly decent. IKF is not horrible, and uh, Turner is going to provide them a lot of power, and there's just a lot of options in that position for him. I mean, the only kind of saving grace, I guess, is that power. He's probably got the most power out of all those guys, and if that's something that they think they need and that he can deliver over the time once the league adjusts him, then he'll get there. I'll say that, like, if he sticks and he can play more than 120 games, then he'll definitely hit more than 15 home runs. I don't believe that he'll get that opportunity.
All right, well, we will check back in on that one. Spring training story number 3 is the battle for the number 5 spot. We have a number of different pitchers that I guess are all vying for this, not the least of which is Alek Manoah. We have Bowden Francis, and of course, Ricky Tiedemann, who is actually starting the spring training opener on Saturday. And I was wondering if maybe you guys can give me your thoughts on how you think this is all gonna shake down over the next month.
I would hope that Alec Manoa would be on a short leash and they can learn from last year that if he starts to struggle, then you got to make a decision because I think last year they left him in too long in games and throughout the season before they sent him down. I think it was even after the All-Star break last year that they finally sent him down, which by that time was way too late. So I think he is your number 5 starter right now. I hope he would be on the short leash. If they do end up sending him down or taking him out of the starting role, then it would be Bowden Francis. I don't think Ricky Tiedemann starts this year. I mean, maybe he comes in with some sort of maybe a relief, maybe, but even if he does it, I don't think it'll be till the end of the year, just because he's going to be playing on Saturday. I think the Jays just keep, they don't want to, I won't say burn him out, but they don't want to bring him out too quickly, especially with his, I think, injury last year. So I don't think you see him in the number 5 spot this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying Manoa this year. I think I saw today that he was throwing in the radar gun. He was hitting 92, 93, which is back up to his normal velocity, which he was 2 years ago. I think he looks great. He seems to have worked hard. He's going to want to prove it. Comes back to that, prove people wrong kind of attitude. I think that's something to be said for that. So I'm buying that he's going to get that spot and probably keep it this year for the most part. Will we see somebody else? Obviously, we're not going to have the kind of luck on the health side of pitching that we did last year. or at least it's not very likely that we will. So things are going to happen. People are going to go down. Hopefully not crazy, hopefully not like Gosman for a long time, something like that. But, we might see some Ricky Tiedemann in there. Bowden Francis, I think, has deserved a chance to pitch as well. Based on what he did in the bullpen last year, I think he was lights out. So, it's a good problem to have, good options. This is the kind of depth that we were, lamenting last year that we didn't have, and crossing our fingers that we didn't have a injury. Luckily we didn't, but now I think we've shorted up there also with Yoro Rodriguez as well. So there's a lot of options, but my money's on Manoah bouncing back.
Well, I definitely think this is Alek Manoah's job to lose. I don't think there's any question about that. I think the scenario that probably should garner a bit more discussion is, what if Alek Manoah really has a very poor spring training? Do you still hand him this role, or what do you do? Like, if you're Pete Walker, like, what recommendation are you making to John Schneider and Ross Atkins and everyone?
I mean, what does a poor spring training mean? I mean,
He struggles, okay? So there's some kind of struggle with control, or so I don't actually think Alek Manoah is too far away from, maybe not Cy Young candidate, but I'm not too far away from being a good pitcher, because if we watched all of his outings last year, so we watched all of his outings, and basically he would get two strikes, and then he just couldn't put guys away. Even two outs at times. He couldn't put guys away. And then it seemed to be, he just kind of lose it. And then once he lost it, like once the wheels were off, it was gone, right? Velocities maybe not responding how we had hoped. Maybe his control isn't good. Like, where does this team go? I think, I don't know if he's having struggles, any sort of significant struggles in spring training. I don't know if he should be number 5.
Well, I think that's what the spring training is for him to struggle and have him overcome that. And then even if he does struggle, it's like, okay, work on it, work on it, work on it. Still have him in the number 5 spot. Yes, it's a long season. Maybe that's where I was saying at the beginning is what's his leash, but not in spring training during the regular season. So if he even struggles during spring training, I'm not going to be too concerned, because I'm like, okay, he's going to work those out. So it's when the regular season that when you put him in, okay, game 1, his second start, his third start. If by his third start he's looking like he did last year, then like what's that number? How long is that leash? Spring training, if he's struggling in spring training, I don't mind that, because it's spring training. That's the whole point. That's the engagement period. Figure it out.
that's why I'm saying, like, what does the struggle look like, right? So if the struggle looks like, he gave up, some runs and he's not winning spring training games, like, I don't care about that. If the struggle looks like, he's not, so he should be hitting 92, 93 on the radar gun. Should be able to locate his pitches. If he can do that, that's what I'm okay with. If he's struggling to do that, like we saw him struggle last year to hit 90 miles an hour, and he just looked labored out there. I think that's the kind of struggle to be concerned of. I mean, the answer to your question, Al, is you give Bowden Francis a shot to start for a little while. I think Rob's right that they're probably not going to put Tiedemann in there right from the start of or start of the season. He's a young guy. I don't think he's had the kind of innings to be built up to last that long. But we might see him later in the season. I don't think that's gonna happen. I mean, I'm already hearing stuff that Manoah's looking good. His velocity's back up. I think Chris Bassett was saying like he's like his catching partner or something. He was saying that he just looks a lot easier, and just the control and everything looks better. So
I think he dropped weight too. I'm going to throw something out. Did they do anything different to the pitch clock this year? Are they making it longer?
No, they're not making it longer. I think they decrease it.
Did they do that during in the playoffs? I thought they did something that instead of like the 15 seconds it was 20, and instead of the 20 seconds it was like I thought there was talks of expanding it instead of 15 seconds just to get ready. I thought that I heard something about a 17. I don't know. I haven't heard anything recently, but I could have sworn I heard something last year.
So there, it's definitely not going up. The pitch clock with runners on base is going from 20 to 18 seconds. It's going down.
18, yeah,
Oh, it's going down.
with runners on base.
I remember when they announced this. I think Kevin Gosman was on foul territory, and he's like, "Oh, a little more time, kind of. I think we need to tweak this." And then, like the day later, they're like, "Nope, 18 seconds. It's going down." I'm like, "Oh, all right." I don't think it's making pitchers happy, to be honest, at all. Um, and I think that's another component of Manoah because it's well documented that he was one of the longer durations between pitches. I think Dustin, you're 100% right that if there is significant struggles, I think it's Bowden Francis that gets the number 5 spot. Um, I yeah, I don't know. Do we have different expectations of Manoa that he's a 5 and not, like I feel like maybe
He's a
our
3. I
expectations are
mean,
also
if
have to be
anything,
different. Well, I mean, but like, do you know what I mean? Like do we have different expectations from going into last year, and do those affect how he's treated? Because the other thing is that if he struggles, and I 100% agree with your assessment on what is struggle versus what is not. Um, the thing is though, is that they tried to set him down last year, and he was like, nope, not reporting. So it's like if he ain't in the right place right away, do you really want to bring him up and then have to maybe send him down, or do you just keep building
Maybe
him
you
up?
trade him. Maybe you trade. Maybe that's the trade. Maybe
I
that's the
think they would
trade
have already
piece you're
done
looking
that, to
for.
be honest, Rob.
You think so? I don't know. I don't know because they were talking. They talked about trading him and then they didn't. Now he looks good, so now they don't want to trade him. But
Well, they're trying to build up his value, right? Like I don't see them trading Alek Manoah unless it's just, the right deal comes and it's like, well, we'll part ways. I don't think I don't think they want to trade Manoah right now because as you've even told me this at the office that his value is, I don't know if it's rock bottom, it's pretty low, but I don't really foresee a trade. Saying that, like, they've definitely shopped him, and you know what? They just didn't get what they wanted back, and so and now they're kind of trying to build him up, and all this. It's they're putting him in the shop window, and who knows? This it's very possible that Alek Manoah gets built up, and as soon as he has a good run of success and he's off, like it's possible that the front office is like, yeah, we didn't like this last year, and I think we'll see what happens. Now I would like to move on just to wrap things up. We do have a listener question, and it kind of ties into the Bo Bichette interview, Dustin, that you had touched on earlier um, in the episode. And so Chris from Oshawa asked, what do you think the mood around the team is this spring following the unceremonious exit from the playoffs the last 2 years?
I think the mood is we got to be better. I mean, I think the mood is, we all as a group, and this is what I'm hearing from, I think Buck Martinez was on Blair and Barker saying this, and just Bo Bichette's comments as you mentioned today. I think Bo Bichette was saying that the speech that Don Mattingly gave to the team was pretty fiery, and basically spoke about being better, being a harder out. There's sort of this team mentality, this team as a team we need to communicate better, and just all around it's just a not acceptable kind of attitude. I think that's the attitude um, that is surrounding the team right now. It's a self-reflection, and just like everybody is responsible for figuring out what the hell went wrong. And yeah, like we mentioned earlier, there's a fairly low bar set this year from the expectation side of things. What you were expressing earlier in terms of just the expectations of this team don't look good, and blah blah blah. We're not going to do much better. Hey, that's maybe something that'll light a fire under their butts. forge them into sort of a unit. Who knows? I don't know how much I believe into that kind of stuff, but I mean, there is something to be said for just feeling as you're all in this together and you're fighting against these negative expectations.
The game last year that they lost, that second game, that was this whole season summed up. Like everything that went wrong in that game is what the whole season was about. So they need to improve on that and work together and be a team. Hopefully with the changes, like even Don Mattingly is not the bench coach anymore. Will have be more of the offensive coordinator. Hopefully they'll see more hitting and just learn from that one bad game and be better. Learn from those mistakes, from the base running errors to the taking the pitcher out too early to not scoring runs. So you don't need to look at the season. You just need to look at that one playoff game, learn from that one game, and be better and improve on all those mistakes that they did.
Well, I think you touched on the base running. I think this is probably not going to be an amazing base running team, but I think if you look into seeing how many mistakes we see, I think that's probably going to be a good sign of where this team's head is at, and how serious they are. Obviously, we saw, you know, an egregious base running error in that game, and I 100% agree. I was nodding along as you were talking there, Rob. That second game was that was 162 games of the 2023 season in one, and that's why it was so frustrating to watch. I think in terms of where their heads at, it's there's definitely an increased level of focus. I think they know that I don't know if they know that like their own fans are kind of hating on them or anything. I think they just understand that there's a pressure in this city, and there's expectations involved. Right now, they have brought in, I think, maybe to help with this, they have brought in and they've made some kind of adjustments on the coaching staff. Don Mattingly still is the bench coach, Rob, but he is also the offensive
No, I think
coordinator.
it's I think it's I think no, I think it's
No,
DeMario Hale.
no, 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 no. So I'm on the MLB website, and he is listed as a bench coach. So DeMarlo Hale, and there is, I read a little bit about this before we came on air. Um, DeMarlo Hale is the associate manager. Okay, so I know these are all titles, so they could be bandied around. Don Mattingly is the bench coach and offensive coordinator. Um, the DeMarlo Hale is actually going to be more involved, apparently, in like defense, base running, all that. Um, Don Mattingly is going to be more involved in like game planning for Garrett Cole on Friday or what have you, right? And I think more of that. Um, so yeah, he's technically still the bench coach, so he's still going to be working with Schneider during the game, pitching moves and pinch hit it and changes throughout the game. But DeMarlo Hale, who we all know and have, he's a familiar face in Toronto, and I think he's probably going to bring a lot to the table as well. Yeah, it's hard. I guess it's hard to know. I think retrospectively we can probably look back at certain moments and things that happened, but I think there's definitely a focus, and there was the whole last year was like, oh, we got to get serious, and then there was like, well, maybe they're not having, maybe they're not having, a ton of fun, or maybe we got to bring fun back. Well, I think I think it's about to get more serious, to be honest, and more professional. And saying that, I think they have the players to do that, to be that, right? And Vladdy's hopefully going to mature another year. Like Bo's just like he's already like a professional, right? He works hard. He basically is almost leads by example. Um, and we got guys like George Springer, Kevin Kiermaier. Like there's Justin Turner. I think Justin Turner is gonna bring like I think he's actually gonna bring a lot of positivity. It seems like, and and you know what? Justin Turner might even as serious as he is and as much of a professional as he is, maybe he takes a little bit of air of the balloon and say, guys, like, let's all just, we'll hit the cages tomorrow. Let's forget about this game and let's move on, right? And um, hopefully we don't have another May 2023, and hopefully things are, proceed along, I guess, as they did last year, and this team is in the contention for the playoffs, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. I can tell you what's not going to happen this year. The Tampa Bay Rays aren't going to go like 14-0 or whatever to start the season. That's not going to happen, right? There's a lot of things that happened last year that were like, that's a bit odd. um, and yeah, well, yeah, I think an increased focus. Now, saying that, I think, as much as we want to talk about storylines, I actually think this spring is probably going to mirror last spring, or it was like, no news is good news. Everybody's got the roles that we think they do, and then we see how it shakes down.
Yeah, there's a little more competition here, but yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the biggest tests will be right away in the regular season. And looking at the schedule, and they got Houston and New York and Tampa Bay right away. So it's going to be a tough April.
So what? Let me just ask one question before we end this. This time last year, I was pretty excited about spring training and the season. I was like, all right, the Jays they're gonna kill it this year. Or look, eight. I'm excited, 8 out of 10. Right now, how excited are you guys for the spring training slash regular season? Because I'll be honest, I'll start. I'm not that excited. I mean, I still love the Jays. I'm still gonna watch them. My expectations, the bar is low. The expectations are low. Right now, I'm about a 6 for excitement. I'm not super excited. I mean, I'm glad that there's going to be something on for me to watch, every day of the week now. Excited that I'm going to be able to talk to you guys about what's going on. But what's your level of excitement with the up and coming season?
Well, for me, my base level excitement isn't super high. So, but for me, I think I'm pretty excited. I mean, I think I'm pretty hopeful. I agree that maybe it's not as high as last year. Um, but I think there's a lot to hope for, and I think there's a lot of things I'm hearing out of spring training that are giving me hope. I'd put myself at a 7 out of 10.
I must say up front that I don't generally get very excited for spring training.
But the regular season as well. It's kind of like spring training into regular season. Like,
But what I'm saying is that on February 22nd, I'm probably like a 6 like you. Because the next month or so, I generally, I'm going to be, keeping an eye on things. Obviously, I think I should, but I generally don't get super excited about, split squad with, Pittsburgh or whatever,
Yeah, of course.
whatever, right? Like I'm the kind of person that, if a sport doesn't matter, then I'm almost not interested, right? So preseason hockey, preseason basketball, whatever, fill in the blank, right? I'm generally not interested because I when there isn't like when the competition isn't there, and the games don't matter, I think the sport becomes a little bit different. Of course, bats are gonna meet balls, right? And all of the things that happen in a baseball game. And you know what? On Saturday, will I tune in? Maybe I might bring my Sportsnet. Um, I might bring my Sportsnet sub back, or I might just wait till opening day. We'll see. We'll see how the next month of expenses go. But I think yeah, I think I'm about a 6. I don't know. Like, I definitely was more excited going into last year, as you said. Um, it just there's just so many variables, and everything could go great, right? Everything, Dalton Varsho could, smack 25 home runs this year, right? Or maybe hit above 220, right? Like, it could be a great year. But I think there's also some concerns as well that, you didn't really other teams are we talked about getting better versus getting worse or staying the same. Like other teams are getting better in the best division in baseball, and so it's kind of like I don't know. I feel conflicted, but I think generally, to add on to my prior point about how is the team feeling, like baseball is like, it's a new season. Anything can happen, right? So I think there's probably that element with the players as well. It's like, you know what? Last season's over with. It's done. We don't have to replay those games again. And that whole like every team has a chance, right? Except the Oakland A's. But um, yeah, I don't know. Like they could. Is there a possibility they could win the division this year? Hell yeah, they could definitely do that, right? Do I think they're gonna win the division? Probably not. But do I just want? I'll say this. My hope for the season is that they make the playoffs and they don't just back in like they did last year. I think everything about the way last year finished was just it was just not good. And it was just not good on every level. So my expectations, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When I order that first Jays hat of the season, Rob, my my excitement will go up. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that. Look, I'm not super excited for spring training. I'll probably watch, whatever I can, if I'm sitting around the house anyways. But I'll tell you, if they get off to a hot start in April, whoo boy, my excitement's gonna shoot up through the roof. So
Well, then I'll ask the same question after spring training to see how what
Yeah,
your excitement levels at.
that's a good time to ask that question. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.